A trio of stories. The 3 snake leaves, the 3 spinners, and the 3 feathers. The 3 snake leaves. There was once on a time a poor man who could no longer support his only son. Then said the son, "Dear father, things go so badly with us, I am a burden to you. I would rather go away and see how I can earn my bread." So the father gave him his blessing, and with great sorrow took leave of him. At this time the king of a mighty empire was at war, and the youth took service with him, and with him went out to fight. When he came before the enemy, there was a battle in great danger, and it rained shot till his comrades fell on all sides, and when the leader also was killed, those left were about to take flight. But the youth stepped forth, spoke boldly to them, and cried, "We will not let our fatherland be ruined." Then the others followed him, and he pressed on and conquered the enemy. When the king heard he owed the victory to him alone, he raised him above all others, gave him great treasures, and made him first in the kingdom. Now the king had a daughter who was very beautiful, but was also very strange. She made a vow to take no one as her lord and husband who did not promise to let himself be buried alive with her if she had died first. "If he loves me with all his heart," said she, "of what use will life be to him afterward?" On her side she would do the same, and if he died first, would go down to the grave with him. This strange oath had up to this time frightened away all wooers, but the youth became so charmed with her beauty he cared for nothing, and asked her father for her. "Do you know what you must promise?" said the king. "I must be buried with her," he replied, "if I outlive her, but my love is so great I do not mind the danger." So the king consented, and the wedding was solemnized with great splendor. They lived now for a while, happy and contented with each other, and then it befell the young queen was attacked by a severe illness, and no physician could save her. As she lay there dead, the young king remembered what he had been obliged to promise, and was horrified at having to lie down alive in the grave. But there was no escape. The king had placed sentries at all the gates, and it was not possible to avoid this fate. When the day came for the corpse to be buried, he was taken down into the royal vault with it, and the door was shut and bolted. Near the coffin stood a table on which were 4 candles, 4 loaves of bread, and 4 bottles of wine, and when this provision came to an end, he would have to die of hunger. Now he sat there full of pain and grief, ate every day only a little piece of bread, drank only a mouthful of wine, and nevertheless saw death daily drawing nearer. While he thus gazed before him, he saw a snake creep out of a corner of the vault and approach the dead body. As he thought it came to gnaw at it, he drew his sword and said, "As long as I live, you shall not touch her," and he hewed the snake in 3 pieces. After a time, a second snake crept out of the hole, and when it saw the other lying dead and cut in pieces, it went back and soon came again with 3 green leaves in its mouth. Then it took the 3 pieces of the snake, laid them together as they ought to go, and placed one of the leaves on each wound. Immediately the severed parts joined themselves together, the snake moved and became alive again, and both hastened away together. The leaves were left lying on the ground, and a desire came into the mind of the unhappy man who had been watching all this to know if the wondrous power of the leaves which had brought the snake to life again could not likewise be of service to a human being. So he picked up the leaves and laid one of them on the mouth of his dead wife, and the other 2 on her eyes. Hardly had he done this, and the blood stirred in her veins, rose into her pale face, and coloured it again. Then she drew breath, opened her eyes, and said, "Where am I?" "You are with me, dear wife," he answered, and he told her how everything had happened and how he had brought her back to life again. Then he gave her some wine and bread, and when she had regained her strength, he raised her up, and they went to the door and knocked and called so loudly the sentries heard it and told the king. The king came down himself and opened the door, and there he found both strong and well, and rejoiced with them that now all sorrow was over. The young king, however, took the 3 snake leaves with him, gave them to a servant, and said, "Keep them for me carefully, and carry them constantly with you. Who knows in what trouble they may yet be of service?" A change had, however, taken place in his wife. After she had been restored to life, it seemed as if all love for her husband had gone out of her heart. After some time, when he wanted to make a voyage over the sea to visit his old father, and they had gone on board a ship, she forgot the great love and fidelity which he had shown her, and which had been the means of rescuing her from death, so she conceived a wicked inclination for the skipper. Once, when the young king lay there asleep, she called in the skipper and seized the sleeper by the head, and the skipper took him by his feet, and thus they threw him into the sea. When the shameful deed was done, she said, "Now let us return home and say he died on the way. I will extol and praise you, so my father will marry me you too, and make you the heir to his crown." But the faithful servant who had seen all they did, unseen by them, unfastened a boat from the ship, got into it, and sailed after his master, letting the traitors go on their way. He fished up the dead body, and by the help of the 3 snake leaves which he carried about with him, he laid them on the eyes and the mouth, and brought the young king back to life. They both rowed with all their strength day and night, and their little boat flew so swiftly they reached the old king before the others. He was astonished when he saw them come alone, and asked what had happened to them. When he learnt the wickedness of his daughter, he said, "I cannot believe she has behaved so ill, but the truth will soon come to light." So he bade both go into a secret chamber and keep themselves hidden from everyone. Soon afterward the great ship came sailing in, and the godless woman appeared before her father with a troubled countenance. And he said, "Why do you come back alone? Where is your husband?" "Well, father," she replied, "I come home again in grief. During the voyage my husband became suddenly ill and died, and if the good skipper had not given me his help, it would have gone ill with me. He was present at his death and can tell you." Then the king said, I make the dead alive again, and opened the chamber and bade the two come out. When the woman saw her husband, she was thunderstruck, and fell on her knees and begged for mercy. But the king said, There is no mercy. He was ready to die with you and restored you to life again. You have murdered him in his sleep, and shall receive the reward that you deserve. Then she was placed with her accomplice in a ship which had been pierced with holes, and sent out to sea, and they sank amid the waves. The Three Spinners. There was once a girl who was idle and would not spin, and let her mother say what she would not bring her to do it. At last the mother was once so overcome with anger and impatience, she beat her, on which the girl began to weep loudly. Now at this very moment the queen drove by, and when she heard the weeping, she stopped her carriage, went into the house, and asked the mother why she was beating her daughter so the cries could be heard on the road. The woman was ashamed to reveal the laziness of her daughter, and said, I cannot get her to leave off spinning. She insists on spinning forever and ever. I am poor and cannot procure the flax. Then answered the queen, There is nothing I like better to hear than spinning. I am never happier than when the wheels are humming. Let me have your daughter with me in the palace. I have flax enough, and she shall spin as much as she likes there. The mother was heartily satisfied with this, and the queen took the girl with her. When they arrived at the palace, she led her up into 3 rooms, which were filled from bottom to top with finest flax. Now spin me this, she said, and when you have done it, you shall have my eldest son for husband. Even if you are poor, I care not for that. Industry is dowry enough. The girl was secretly terrified, for she could not have spun the flax, no, not if she had lived till she was 300 years old, and had sat at it every day from morning till night. When therefore she was alone, she began to weep, and sat for 3 days without moving a finger. On the 3rd day came the queen, and when she saw nothing had been spun yet, she was surprised. But the girl excused herself by saying she had not been able to begin because of her great distress at leaving her mother's house. The queen was satisfied with this, but said when she was going away, Tomorrow you must begin to work. When the girl was alone again, she did not know what to do, and in her distress went to the window. Then she saw 3 women coming toward her, the first of whom had a broad, flat foot. The second had such a great underlip it hung down over her chin. The third had a broad thumb. They remained standing before the window, looked up, and asked the girl what was amiss with her. She complained of her trouble, and they offered her their help, and said, If you will invite us to the wedding, be not ashamed of us, and will call us your aunts, and place us at your table, we will spin the flax for you in a short time. With all my heart, she replied, but do come in and begin the work at once. Then she led in the 3 strange women and cleared a place in the first room, where they seated themselves and began their spinning. The one drew the thread and trod the wheel. The other wetted the thread, and the third twisted it and struck the table with her finger. As often as she struck it, a skein of thread fell to the ground that was spun in finest manner possible. The girl concealed the 3 spinners from the queen, and showed her whenever she came the great quantity of spun thread, until the latter could not praise her enough. When the first room was empty, she went to the second, and at last to the third, and that too was quickly cleared. Then the 3 women took leave, and said to the girl, Do not forget what you have promised us, it will make your fortune. When the maiden showed the queen the empty rooms and the great heap of yarn, she gave orders for a wedding, and the bridegroom rejoiced that he was to have such a clever and industrious wife, and praised her mightily. I have 3 aunts, said the girl, and as they have been very kind to me, I should not like to forget them in my good fortune. Allow me to invite them at the wedding, and let us have them sit with us at table. And the queen and the bridegroom said, Why should we not allow it? Therefore, when the feast began, the 3 women entered in strange apparel, and the bride said, Welcome, dear aunts. Ugh, said the bridegroom, how comest thou by these odious friends? And he went to the one with the broad flat foot, and said, How do you come by such a broad foot? By treading, she said, by treading. And the bridegroom went to the second, and said, How do you come by your falling lip? By licking, she said, by licking. And he asked the third, How do you come by your broad thumb? By twisting the thread, by twisting the thread, she answered. On this, the king's son was alarmed, and said, Neither now nor ever shall my beautiful bride touch a spinning wheel, ever. And thus she got rid of the hateful flax spinning. The 3 Feathers. There was once on a time a king who had 3 sons, of whom 2 were clever and wise, but the third did not speak much, and was simple, and was thus called the simpleton. When the king had become old and weak, and was thinking of his end, he did not know which of his sons should inherit the kingdom after him. So he said to them, Go forth, and he who brings me the most beautiful carpet shall be king after my death. That there should be no dispute among them, he took them outside his castle, blew 3 feathers in the air, and said, You shall go as they fly. 1 feather flew to the east, the other to the west, but the third flew straight up and did not fly far, but soon fell to the ground. 1 brother went to the right, and the other to the left, and they mocked Simpleton, who was forced to stay where the 3rd feather had fallen. He sat down and was sad, but all at once he saw there was a trap-door close by the feather. He raised it up, found some steps, and went down them, and he came to another door, knocked at it, and he heard someone inside calling, Little green maiden small, hopping hither and thither, hop to the door, and quickly, quickly, quickly see who is there. The door opened, and he saw a great fat toad sitting, and round her a crowd of little toads. The fat toad asked what he wanted, and he answered, I should like to have the prettiest and finest carpet in the world. So she called the young one to her, and said, Little green maiden small, hopping hither and thither, hop quickly and bring me that great box there. The young toad brought the box, and the fat toad opened it, and gave Simpleton a carpet out of it, so beautiful and fine that on the earth above none could have been woven like it. So he thanked her and ascended once more. The others had, however, looked on their youngest brother so stupid they believed he would find and bring nothing at all. "Why should we give ourselves a great deal of trouble to search?" said they, and got some coarse handkerchiefs from the first shepherd's wives they met, and carried them home to the king. At the same time Simpleton came back and brought his beautiful carpet. When the king saw it, he was astounded, and said, "Justice be done, the kingdom belongs to the youngest." But the others let their father have no peace, and said it was impossible that Simpleton, who in everything lacked understanding, should be king, and entreated him to make a new agreement. So the father said, "He who brings me the most beautiful ring shall inherit the kingdom." And he led the 3 brothers out, and blew into the air 3 feathers. Again the feathers went east and west. Simpleton's feather, however, flew straight up and fell down near the door into the earth. Then he went down to the fat toad and told her he wanted the most beautiful ring. She at once ordered the great box to be brought, and gave him a ring out of it, which sparkled with jewels and was so beautiful no goldsmith on earth could have created it. The eldest laughed at Simpleton for going to seek a golden ring. They gave themselves no trouble, but knocked the nails out of an old carriage ring and took it to the king. But when Simpleton produced his golden ring, his father again said the kingdom belongs to him. The eldest did not cease from tormenting the king until he made a 3rd condition, and declared the one who brought the most beautiful woman home should have the kingdom. So again he blew the 3 feathers as before, and again they fell as before. Then Simpleton, without more ado, went down to the fat toad and said, "I am to take home the most beautiful woman." "Oh," said the toad, "the most beautiful woman. Well, she's not at hand at the moment, but you shall have her." She gave him a yellow turnip which had been hollowed out, to which 6 mice were harnessed. And Simpleton said quite mournfully, "What am I to do with that?" The toad answered, "Just put one of my little toads in." So he seized at random one out of the circle, and put her into the yellow coach. But hardly was she seated inside, than she turned into a wonderfully beautiful maiden, the turnip into a coach, and the 6 mice into horses. So he kissed her, and drove off quickly with the horses, and took her to the king. His brothers came afterwards. They had given themselves no trouble at all to seek beautiful girls, but had brought with them the first peasant women they chanced to meet. When the king saw them, he said, "After my death, the kingdom belongs to my youngest son." Again the 2 eldest deafened the king's ears afresh with clamour. "We cannot consent to Simpleton's being king," and demanded the one whose wife could leap through a ring which hung in the centre of the hall should have preference. They thought the peasant women can do that easily. They are strong enough, but the delicate maiden will jump herself to death. So the aged king agreed likewise. Then the 2 peasant women jumped through the ring, but they were so stout that when they fell, their coarse arms and legs broke in 2. Then the pretty maiden whom Simpleton had brought with him sprang through lightly as a deer, and all opposition had to cease. So he received the crown, and has ruled wisely for a length of time. The end.